baby. Welcome in. It is week 2 of the Ringer Wise Guys, rocking and rolling right here on FanDuel TV. We got you covered every which way, breaking down all the action across the board in the NFL, ATS. We welcome in Joe House, Raheem Palmer, Cousin Sal, yours truly, John Jastremski. We are back by popular demand for week 2. Sal, we made it. We're in one piece. We get to do another show. Let's go.
It's great. It's great. I don't know if it's by popular demand. I didn't see the numbers. I think just contractually they have to keep us on. But really, life couldn't be better, JJ. I gave out a winner, my best bet last week. My Cowboys are undefeated and unscored upon, and the wife hasn't kicked me out of the house yet. So maybe, I don't know. I feel like we're getting greedy doing a week 2 show.
Well, listen, you got a lot of things working in your favor. Speaking of things working in their favor, Joe House fading those rookie quarterbacks last week. Well done, Poppy.
Yeah, JJ, we set the bar pretty high last week here on Wise Guys. I mean, if you go across the board, all the bets that we gave out, it was a very successful week. I'm worried about 2 things this week. One is matching that level of success, and the second is, will my internet stay in touch with us for the full hour? Fingers crossed on both counts, buddy.
Well, we'll see about your internet. We'll see about your earpiece. One thing I know, Raheem, is somebody's going into the deep waters today. Job well done nailing the fact the New York Giants are going to be that team. What's the over-under on you taking a team into the deep waters? What do we think? Over-under 7.5 minutes into the show?
Oh, definitely 7.5 minutes into the show. I'm going to go 5.5 minutes because the team that I like, I think they're really going to take the opposing team into the deep waters. So, let's go under 5.5.
I like the sound of that. All right, it's now time to wisen up. We got a lot we got cooking on this particular show. We'll wisen up with the fellas, which was very successful in week 1. We will get made like Tommy did in Goodfellas, where it seems a little too good to be true. We were all over that. We got to take care of business yet again. And then we have Man's Best Bet, where the boys will pick their dog of the week, not just to cover, but to go and win outright. All right, it's now time to wisen up. We're going to start with the man who nailed the dog. I mean, not exactly, but you get my drift. The Cleveland Browns, they took care of business. It sounds like, what the hell are you talking about?
JJ. Yeah.
But fair enough. The floor is yours. Take it away.
My best bet is the Cowboys. It was 9.5. Now it's 8.5 over those Jets you discussed. Listen, first of all, FanDuel is begging you to tease this game, and I hate when they beg. It's so unbecoming. But I'm going to take them straight up minus 8.5 points. Listen, and you can call this a homer pick because I'm a Cowboys fan, but it's not a homer pick. I never lived there. Okay. I've never been in Dallas more than 3 days at a time. So not a homer pick. I just love what I saw last week. As far as the Jets go, we saw what their defense did, but I feel like they were playing on raw emotion. They really were. You're not going to get a fairy tale game like that out of them. Again, defensively and offensively, we saw Zach Wilson. Listen, honestly, if he doesn't throw that touchdown to Garrett Wilson, who makes an acrobatic catch, really saving an interception, I really think they're looking for a new quarterback, the Jets are, and passing on Zach Wilson, but that's not the case. And so now the Cowboys in that fearsome defense has a less mobile Daniel Jones to go after. And I think it's going to result in a beating 27-14 at best for Jets. Give me the Cowboys laying the points.
Well, Sal, considering I live in the state of New York and I have so many Jet fans in my life, I even have some delusional Jet fans telling me they're live to win the division. I mean, without Aaron Rodgers, come on now. So I will be rooting for your Wisen Up pick of the week, and hopefully it will maybe get some of these Jet fans out of my life, at least for the next couple weeks. House, your turn. Let's Wisen Up.
Fellas, I'm riding along with Cousin Sal, but I have kind of a different angle on this Cowboys Jets game. I like the under, and I not only like it, I love it. Under 38.5 is my best bet of the week. And look, I saw some great football last week. The 3 best units I saw, the Dallas defense, the Dolphins offense, and the Jets defense. Sadly, Nick Foles did not play last week, so we didn't get 4 perfect units. But look, I'll ride with those. And this Dallas Jets defensive matchup is so rich. I'm very, very, very interested in seeing how the Jets try and defend Dallas. They didn't have to show anything. Dak barely threw for 175 yards last week because it just wasn't necessary. against the Giants. We know that the Jets are going to keep the kids' wheels on Zach Wilson's bicycle. Zach Wilson, a perfect 7-0 in his last 7 games to the under. The Jets, 10 out of their last 12, scoring under 38 points in the total. And the Jets defense is very good against the expected point totals of their opponents. 2/3 of the time over this last couple of years, they hold their opponent under the forecasted point total. It's a Zach Wilson game. I don't expect to see anything but run efforts. And I do think Dallas is going to be cautious. I think pace on offense from both teams is going to be slow. So I expect to see, a nip and tuck, dog it out kind of a situation. That's the best play of the week for me. Under 38.5 in Jets and Cowboys.
I am all over that under. You have 2 of the best defenses in the NFL house. I absolutely love it. And you throw in Zach Wilson against the Cowboy defense. The Cowboys maybe want to play a sort of grinded out game. I don't think we're going to have a lot of points down in Big D. All right, Raheem, we know week 1 to week 2, there are buy low spots. I think my dude has a buy low spot all lined up for Wising Up. Ain't that right, Raheem?
Yes, we like the Cincinnati Bengals -3. They come off a 24-3 loss against the Cleveland Browns, but we all know the Browns have Joe Burrow's number. He's just 1-5 against them in his career, losing by an average of 15 points a game. However, after a loss, Joe Burrow is 12-4 against the spread, and the Bengals are 9-2 the last 11 games as a favorite. This is a fade of the Ravens, who their whole team is basically in a hospital right now. You look at the offensive line. You look at they're banged up over there. Roddy Stanley. You look at Tyler Limbaugh. They're not playing today. You look at the secondary. Marlon Humphrey. You look at Marcus Williams. They're banged up. The last thing you want is a banged up secondary when you're taking on Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I think the Bengals go out there and they stop on this team. This is a great buy low spot for the Cincinnati Bengals. Go out there and take them today.
Raheem, I have some thoughts on Baltimore and Cincinnati, but we will save that for a little bit later on in the show. It's now time to go 2-0 for yours truly as far as Wising Up is concerned. And this is one that I'm not going to lie, fellas, I had circled immediately as soon as I heard Mr. Simmons and our buddy Cousin Sal run through the lines for week 2 on their outstanding podcast. I am getting points with Mike Vrabel against Brandon Staley. Where do I sign? This is a kitchen sink type of game for the Tennessee Titans. You have the Chargers in a brutal situation. They got to go across the country. They got to play a 10 a.m. Eastern game as far as they are concerned. You look at Tennessee and the Chargers. Last year, it was a game in which Ryan Tannehill basically was playing on one leg. And I know he stinks, and I know he's not any good. But that was a game where the Chargers had to do everything in their power just to squeak by a depleted and beat up Tennessee team. And that game was in Los Angeles. I think Tennessee knows they need it. They showed me some good things defensively last week. And the line is moving in their favor. I like that. So you're seeing this line go from 3, now at 2.5. I don't care. I don't even think I'm going to need those points. The Tennessee Titans get it done, fellas. That is our Wising Up play of the week.
Yeah, JJ, if I could jump in for a second, and with help from Raheem or whoever else is, listen, I feel like the Chargers line is going to move around from Thursday to Sunday more than most others we're going to see, because I think that's a sharp versus public play almost every single week. Would you agree, Raheem, that everybody and their mother who's the casual bettor likes the high-flying Herbert offense? And we're going to talk a little more about this. I have a pick later in the show. And then I think as soon as the sharps get in there, like, wait a minute, home team needs to win. They've lost 8 in a row. Tennessee to keep pace. I don't care who the quarterback is. I'm taking the home Tennessee Titans. Raheem, do you feel the same way about the Chargers line specifically?
No, I don't. I think they're a team who I think there's going to be a discrepancy between what bettors think each and every week. I think you're going to have sharps on one side, on sharps on the other side. And for this game in particular, you look at the Chargers passing game. They're taking on a Titans team, which was 28th in drop back EPA per play, 25th in dropback success rate last year. And then you look at last week, they gave up 305 passing yards to Derek Carr, and they were 25th in both of those categories in terms of their advanced stats. So I think this is a game where Justin Herbert and the Chargers should be able to pass all over this Titans team. Austin Eckler is out, and that actually might work to their advantage. So I kind of disagree with JJ on this one. I know Mike Vrabel, as an underdog, he tends to do well, but I think you're going to have sharps on one side and sharps on the other side, because I just think this Chargers team is very difficult to figure out.
So Dream just made the case for why, when we get to another segment in this show, I'm very excited to talk about the Tennessee Titans in an inflated points position, but I don't really like the handicap of this game. It's exactly what Dream just described to us. The problem is that the Titans secondary is not good, and it hasn't been good for a while. Now, it's a bend, don't break kind of defense, I guess, but they are going to make the Chargers one-dimensional, and there is some good data out there that when Tennessee is at home and facing pass-heavy offenses, that they tend to do well. They're 4-1 in situations like that over the last handful of games. And Tennessee at home in general doesn't tend to lose by more than one score, which is why I'm looking for a certain angle with the Tennessee Titans. But the number itself feels too sharp for me, and I'm not personally playing that game, JJ.
And then I want to add, Ryan Tannehill is looking like he's Larry Holmes status Flavian sick right now. So how can you trust that guy?
Listen, I don't feel great about Ryan Tannehill, but I wouldn't feel great about Brandon Staley, who let Tyreek Hill run wild last week and had absolutely no answer. You know, we all praise Brandon Staley for the great game plan he had against Miami last year on Sunday Night Football. You know, Tyreek Hill is killing you again and again and again. Maybe make an adjustment, maybe do something different in the final drive of the game. He was unable to do so. And Raheem, I think they're going to miss Austin Eckler in this game. I understand that they have the high-powered passing attack with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. They bring in Johnston from TCU. That's all well and good. But a lot of instances when Justin Herbert's looking for somebody as a safety valve, Austin Eckler can be that guy. And again, I can't pass up the idea of getting points with a vastly superior head coach in a game they desperately need at home, even with the lousy Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So my Wising Up play is the Tennessee Titans plus 2.5. We go from Wising Up to Tommy's getting made. Oh, Sal trying to cut off the segment already.
Well, no, I had something to say, and, you know, because I feel like we should move on. 8.5 minutes is far too long to spend on the Tennessee Titans for any pregame. But back to House and I, our bet with the Jets and Cowboys. House, throw this in there. Throw this in the hopper there. We got Micah Parsons to record a sack and the Cowboys to win. If you're looking to not give the points, this is one of the fun ways FanDuel can get you there. Micah Parsons to record a sack and the Cowboys win is plus 115. Parsons is going to get about one a game. It's just coming so easy for him. So look for him in the 16 to 18 range in terms of sacks at the end of the year. And the fact that you're getting a plus number for that. Mwah.
This is why Cousin Sal and I have been friends for a long time. First of all, I kiss his ass every chance I get, so he keeps me around. But really, he just sings this sweet parlay music to my ears. He knows I'm looking for big spreads. We caught it last week with the Falcons. I love the way that Sal is thinking I am going to join him. As soon as this show is over, I'm into the machine to do some FanDuel magic.
There you go.
FanDuel magic. The boys aligning. Oh, boy. Now I'm getting nervous. You know, I was feeling good about this. Now it just seems a little too lovey-dovey for my liking. All right, we go from Wising Up to Tommy's getting made. It's time for our rat line of the week for week number 2. And I'll start the proceedings, fellas. I think it's Raheem's play here. Dream, I love you. This seems too good to be true with Cincinnati and Baltimore. Everything you just hit on was accurate. Baltimore, issues on the offensive line. Baltimore, issues in the secondary. Cincinnati 0-1, only laying 3 at home. It just smells. That's all there is to it for me. And what I keep going back to in this particular game is that the Baltimore Ravens should have beat the Cincinnati Bengals last year wildcard weekend. They should have beat them with Mr. Huntley at quarterback, for goodness sakes, if they don't fumble on the 1-yard line. It's a tough game. I understand the case for Cincinnati, But there are just a lot of factors here. This line's only at 3. The Ravens have all these issues. The Bengals really need a win. Sal, the way I see this game, it smells like a rat.
I'm with you. This is very ratty. This is the Chuck E. Cheese special, I feel, JJ. And I'm with you. I couldn't even find another game that I was like more of a head scratcher. When it opened up this week at 3.5, I was like, okay, that makes sense. The Bengals needed more. They came off a poor performance, albeit in the rain. Joe Burrow looks a little shaky, but they're playing the Ravens. And like I said, they need this win more than the Ravens do. And Raheem went through the litany of injuries that the Ravens have incurred over the week. Not to mention, Lamar Jackson did not look great last week, a 16.3 QBR. So why isn't Cincinnati giving 3.5? Why is it just a measly 3? They're saying these teams are dead even and then giving the Bengals 3 at home. No, I think it's a stay away. I hope I'm wrong because I have the Bengals all over the place otherwise in futures. But right now, I'm not getting why it's only 3.
And remember with Cincinnati, started off 0-2 last year, losing to Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys. And they're a team, despite their success of having great Decembers and having success in the month of January, gotten off to sluggish starts, 5-4 each of the last 2 years. All right, House, we're getting made. Rat line for week 2.
I'm worried about this crew already engaging in all this groupthink because you two guys are aligned on this Bengals-Ravens situation. I think me and Dream are aligned on our choice for rat game, and it is the Seattle Seahawks. I'm right back with the Seattle team. They were my rat line last week. They keep living in this dead zone. They started off the week at 5.5 point underdogs going to Detroit. Now that line is down to 4.5, but those numbers are nonsense numbers. Those are Vegas numbers. Those are throw up your hands numbers. I'm throwing up my hands at this Seattle team who started off the first half of their game last week at home against the LA Rams. A must-win game if you believe in their over win total for this season and for the Seattle Seahawks potentially competing for the NFC West and competing for a playoff spot. You must take care of business against the Rams at home. They didn't do so. And it was a tale of two halves because of the injuries that everybody's talked about to their offensive line, but that doesn't account for the lackluster performance by their defense. My concern, JJ, is Seattle might not be any good. Since week 9 of last year, they have 3 wins. They beat the Jets with Mike White, and they beat the Rams twice. Not exactly setting the world on fire. Now, the thing is, for Seattle in this position, every trend in the world supports a week 2 overreaction that the numbers inflated. We also have no idea with this Detroit team. They have all this rest, but since 2014, Detroit as a favorite of more than 3 points in the first couple of weeks of the season, it just doesn't happen. This is the second or third time. So this one stinks to high heaven to me. I don't know what to do. Dream, what are we going to do about the Seattle team?
I think this game stinks on both lines. I think the Lions stink, and I think Seattle stinks. And when you look at this line, these two teams played last year in a 48-45 shootout in a game in which the Seahawks won rather easily. So you come back to this game and you see the line is 4.5. Now, the look-ahead line on this game was 2.5. It got bet all the way up to 6, and it's right back down to 4.5. So on the surface, you're saying this is an overreaction and you should take Seattle. And from a numbers perspective, I agree. But I think House hinted on the fact that this Seahawks team might not be good. You look at Geno Smith. He's a guy who looks like he had a one hot album every 10-year average because outside of last year, he's been hot trash. So how can you really trust this guy? And then you come into this game. He lost both of their offensive tackles, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. They won't be playing in this game. So there won't be a lot of protection for Geno Smith going up against Aiden Hutchinson, who I think is going to get in his bag today. You look at the Seahawks last week. They basically played a FCS defense in the Los Angeles Rams, and they only had 3.9 yards per play and 180 yards of offense. So you look at the offense, I can't trust Geno Smith. Defensively, they're a mess. They only had 2 quarterback hits and 0 sacks on Matthew Stafford. And you saw that Rams offensive line last year. So I don't know if you can trust what number lends itself to a play on Seattle. I'm going to completely stay away from this game.
How about that? A little tag team action here for Tommy's Getting Made. Sal and I align with Baltimore and Cincinnati. Haas and Raheem aligned with Detroit and Seattle. And full disclosure, I thought for sure leaving Vegas Thursday night after the opener, after the Lions went outright against Kansas City, I'm walking out of the sportsbook saying there's no way in the world I'm not fading the Lions. Like I thought, oh, I got to fade the Lions. This is going to be too good to be true in week 2. And then we see what we saw from Seattle in week 1. And now I just look at the game and say I'm completely staying away. Sal, should we be leery of teams like Seattle and the Giants that got a lot of preseason hype? But if you look at their performance, Raheem hit on it with Seattle. Terrible down the stretch. The Giants were terrible down the stretch. It maybe was masked by that win they had against the Vikings round 1 of the postseason. Is that something you're keeping an eye on these first couple weeks?
Well, I'm going to flip it on you, okay? Because I think Detroit was getting a lot of preseason hype. And yes, they went in Thursday night and beat the Super Bowl champs. But what did they do offensively? Everybody told us their offense was going to be a juggernaut, right? It really wasn't. They scored, 10, 13 points? They scored on a fake punt, right? They go down the field. So that's not really the Chiefs' defense fault. And they score on, they score on a defensive touchdown off of a pass that was thrown right in the numbers. So I don't know where their offense is coming from. By the way, this is against a Chiefs defense that was missing Chris Jones. So I'm not head over heels in love with the Lions offense and what they put up. I guess Goff has that streak going where he hasn't thrown an interception. Look for that. If you're getting a plus number at some point, that's going to end soon. It just is. It's the nature of the game. So I go the other way with that. JJ, I think the Lions are being overrated a little.
I don't know what to do with it, and so I'm staying away. I do think that there is an angle, and I'll get to this in our props segment, for some Seattle performance. I think they will, having had the benefit of a full week to replace the injuries on the offensive line. And, it's not like those two guys were setting the world on fire. They weren't, top of class in your PFF offensive line pass protection grades. These were middle of the road guys. So they're able to game plan a full week. I do think that we will see that Seattle offense. That offense should have scored 16 points in the first half. They missed a field goal right at the end, 16 points per half. Now they came out in the second half and went 3 and out because of the disarray on the line. But I do think we could see some good Seattle performances on the offensive side of the ball, JJ.
If there's an honorable mention for the Rat Line, and our buddy, our pal, Bill Simmons, brought this up in our little group chat that we have, Raheem, where do we stand on Kansas City, who gets Travis Kelce back? They get Chris Jones back. Andy Reid is money in the state of Florida. Andy Reid is money with extra time to prepare. And yet it's at 3.5. And I feel the difference between 3 and 3.5 in that game is gigantic. Do you see that at all, Raheem, as a Rat Line with KC and Jacksonville?
Yeah, at this price, I want nothing to do with this game, especially with Kansas City. I mean, the difference between 3 and 3.5 is huge. We all know 3 lands about 17, 18% of the time. So getting that 3.5 is huge. And then also, when you look at Mahomes, when the spread is between +3 and -3, he's a terror. I mean, you're looking at a guy who was 10-4-1 against the spread. So that line going to 3.5 is kind of tough. The one thing I will say is that Travis Kelce is back for this game, and you can't expect, especially off the Thursday night football game, that these receivers, Kadarius Toney, are going to drop as many passes as they did last week. And this Jaguars defense is absolutely abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. And one thing you have to realize is that the Jaguars offensive line is also a mess. Cam Robinson is still suspended. They're missing another guy off that offensive line. So I expect with Chris Jones back, Chiefs should be able to get some pressure on Trevor Lawrence. And I'm not the biggest Jags fan, so I would lean towards the direction of Kansas City, but laying 3.5 when 2.5 was out there earlier this week, it's a bad play.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in the must-win thing by week 2, and it's a gambler's 101, trap, I would say. People are saying, well, the Chiefs lost last week. They're on essentially a bye, whatever. They have rest advantage, and Andy Reid, we know how well he does with that. They have to win this week. No, they don't have to win this week. It's going to be weird. It's going to be 90 degrees. They might expect rain there in Jacksonville. Could be a weird game. Jacksonville is certainly a serviceable team to keep that close. And let's think about it. Really, who's in first place in the AFC West? The Raiders, right? If they lose this week, which they should, to the Bills, the Chiefs' loss this week would put them still just a game back. They're going to be in decent shape either way. So I would, if you're picking this game, don't use the reasoning that it's a must win for the Chiefs, because it isn't.
I just want to jump in there. There is a parlay out there for 3 teams that are forecasted to have 10 wins or more. The Bills, the Bengals, and the Chiefs, all of whom lost week 1. If you want to parlay those 3 teams on a money line parlay, it pays better than 2-1. I'm just saying.
I'm staying away. And I would say that there will be a team that probably screws that up. And Raheem, I don't think is going to like to hear this. I think it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't throw the tomatoes at me. That's all I'm saying. Coming up on Ringer Wise Guys, we will have man's best bet where Simmons Patriots last week let me down. Hopefully they will not do that again. We have some props. We have the Ringer grab bag. All that more. It's coming up right here on FanDuel TV. Coming up this week on FanDuel TV, the boys split up. You'll have Raheem Palmer, Joe House, and yours truly, JJ John Jastremski, on the East Coast Bias Ringer Gambling Podcast turned into a television show. You want to stay tuned for the fellas for that. And then our guy, Cousin Sal, has his winning weekend where he gets his chance to shine and basically make fun of all of us and Bill Simmons at the same time. So you want to stay tuned this week on FanDuel TV for East Coast Bias and Cousin Sal's winning weekend. So last week we had a cameo from the podfather Bill Simmons. This week it is the whiz kid extraordinaire who's got the best breakdowns imaginable on Twitter. I loved when I saw that Tua breakdown. It's making me smile as we speak. Ben Solak, welcome. What do you got for us, bud?
What's up, Ringer Wise guys? I'm Ben Solak. This is the bet I'd like the family to consider for week 2. It's Giants minus 4.5 on the road against the Cardinals. I think if this line were in week 1, before we had like a turnover-riddled game, Giants-Cowboys, and a kind of maybe a little bit better than we thought Cardinals' performance against the Commanders, it'd be like minus 6.5. I think we're overreacting to week 1. Giants got very unlucky with turnovers, but I think that defense is still strong, and it's Josh Dobbs' like 4th week in the facility. I still have a lot of doubts about the Cardinals. Wise guys, what do you think?
You know, I thought about the Giants this week, and everything you said, Solak, makes sense. This is an overreaction line. That may be true, but this also stinks of a rat line in many ways, Sal. Like, here's my thing. If the Giants can't win this game against Arizona, after losing 40-0 to your team, then cancel the season. So I have the Giants tied into everything imaginable, which leads to disaster on so many different fronts. I'm just letting everybody know, Sal, I'm on the Giants every which way with Solak, and I know it's going to end poorly.
I think you're right. And, again, we went over, there's really no such thing as a must win in week 2, except if you're the New York Football Giants, who lost by 40. Now, losing by 40 in week 1 is much more digestible if you could beat the Arizona Cardinals by 14 or 17 points. But that Cardinals team was frisky against the Commanders. Ask Joe House. He still has an ulcer. I don't know. He just got out of the hospital like Tuesday afternoon trying to treat that ulcer. So they could be in that game until the end. So I recommend the Giants on a teaser because they have to win because, watch New York, JJ. Everyone will hate Dayball by Halloween if they lose this game. And then a tough slate ahead next few weeks. So for 49ers on the road Thursday night doesn't get any easier than Arizona. So they have to win. But again, I'm with you. And I don't love them covering that spread.
Yeah, I mean, they lose that game to Arizona with the Niners coming up. You're staring 0-3 in the face. And, House, you saw a lot of that Cardinal-Commander game because your boys took care of business by the hair on their chins. Jonathan Gannon obviously has a comfort level going up against teams in the NFC East. Is that something you noticed watching your Commanders?
I was super impressed by the Arizona pass rush. They got 6 sacks. Now, some of that has to do with Sam Howell being a basically a rookie quarterback. He got to play one game last year in terms of being a starter, but the offensive line at Washington is a disaster. But to your point, JJ, Gannon knows these NFC East teams, and I think that if Arizona is able to put some pressure on Daniel Jones, it could be a little bit uncomfortable for the Giants faithful.
Raheem, last year when we were doing our preview pods, and I thought you were certifiably insane for what it's worth. I mean, normally I'm the one who's certifiably insane. But Raheem last year was like the only guy in America who liked the Giants going into the start of the year. Looked like a genius. They make the playoffs. They win a playoff game. Raheem, this year, you got all of the New Yorkers. You got people like me making the case that the Giants are going to be better, that the Giants are going to go make noise, even though I didn't like them more than Dallas and Philly for what it's worth. But I think you and a lot of the sharps out there were kind of selling stock on the Giants going all the way back to the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, this was a team who overperformed their Pythagorean expectation last year. This was a team that really got by because Brian Daboll is such a good coach. Now, one thing I want to say about this week is that I agree with Solak. I think this is the right side. This line should probably be 6, but you have the overreaction of the Giants losing by 40 to my beloved Dallas Cowboys. And you look historically, teams that lose by 25, 30, 40 points, they tend to bounce back the following week. This Arizona team is not good at all. We all know that they were tanking. And last week, they only had 3.8 yards per play. So this is not a team to be afraid of. One thing I want to say, and sorry, Sal, I don't want to disrespect you by saying this, but please do not tease the Giants because you would be teasing through the 0. I got to teach everybody the proper teaser rules. There's a book out there called Stanford Wine Sports Betting. If you can read that, check that out, but don't tease through the 0. If you're going to take this game, just lay the points with the 4.5 that's out there in the market right now. I think you're getting some value.
I think we got to nail that book. I think it's got to be sent to House, Sal, and myself.
I don't read.
Just saying.
I stopped reading like 12 years ago. So just tell me.
Come on. You're no fun. You're one of those guys that would mock me for bringing a book to the beach, wouldn't you?
I'm no fun because I don't read. I don't know. I might go the other
reading
way,
is fun. What's wrong with reading? Anyway, we go from the pick from Mr. Solak to man's best bet, where the boys will find an underdog, not only to go and cover the spread, but to go and win outright, and we'll kind of have some fun with the size of the dog to the size of the wager. Sal, start off the proceedings, sir.
Well, I am going with it's a mid-range dog, and it needs to be able to swim. So it's an American Water Spaniel. In fact, I didn't do any research. I don't know that American Water Spaniels swim any better or worse than like a lab or a golden retriever or anything like that. But that is my pick. The Seahawks, we talked about them in the previous segment, plus 180 just seems like too much. I really think Geno Smith hit a little bit of a snag. I can't even explain what happened in that Rams game where they made 2 no-name Ram receivers household names, where everybody went crazy on the waiver wires trying to pick these guys up. But whatever, I'm throwing that game aside. I know Raheem brought up they're missing tackles. That part's not good, but they're just too talented a group position players. You got Metcalf, who kind of lost his mind. If he doesn't shove the player in the back on 2nd and 2, they may be back in that game against the Rams. So I think he gets his head straight. You got Lockett, Smith and Jigma. There's just too many weapons for Seattle to not score enough. And I think they go score for score with Detroit, who I mentioned earlier, not great offensively last week. Maybe they get it together as well. But at plus 180 for two teams who virtually going into the season had the same over under. I think one had 9.5, one had 9. Why is the line 4.5? Why is the money line plus 180, plus 170? I'm going Seattle as my big American Water Spaniel dog upset.
Sal clearly out on the Lions and finds a dog to go and take down the Lions. So that's where we're going here in week number 2. All right, Raheem, man's best bet. Your dog of the week. Who's it going to be?
We're going to go with the Chicago Bears. And look, this is uglier than a masterpiece sneaker, but do you really want to lay points with Baker Mayfield? I mean, this guy's 2-6 outright as a favorite, 0-8 against the spread, his last 8 starts as a favorite. And you look at favorites under Todd Bowles, they're 4-9-1. Now let's break down the game. When you look at this game, the Buccaneers are overvalued in this spot. They were initially 1.5-point underdogs on the look ahead line. Now they're 2.5, 3-point favorites. So you're getting plus money on a Bears team, which should be favorite coming into this game. And I wasn't high on the Bears, but Buccaneers last week, they got outgaining yardage, 369 to 242. Passing yards, 328 to 169. Yards per play, 5.9 to 3.6. They basically benefited from 3 turnovers, 2 fumbles, and 1 interception, which either gave points to the Buccaneers or took away points from the Minnesota Vikings. And as we saw on Thursday Night Football with the Minnesota Vikings, they can turn the ball over at will. All their goodwill and luck that they had last season is no longer with them, and they're just pissing away games that they probably should win. This is a great spot to back the Chicago Bears. Another tidbit, the Buccaneers, we all know with Todd Bowles, they like the blitz. Todd Bowles is blitzing all the time. Well, the one metric in which Justin Fields does well is against the blitz. Last week, he had an 81% completion percentage against the blitz on 16 dropbacks. You blitz Justin Fields, he's going to take off and run. Take the Bears to win this game outright. I know it's ugly.
Listen, Raheem, fading Todd Bowles as a favorite, sign me up right now. That coach, listen, tremendous defensive coordinator, not a head coach. Won in week 1, was good to me in week 1. Now, all of a sudden, the roles are shifted, and Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield find themselves in a position where they are favorites. No thank you. So I got no problem with that one. House, man's best bet.
JJ, I'm taking 2 small dogs, and I'm pumping them up. We're teasing them up to be big dogs this week. We're taking the Pittsburgh Steelers at home as underdogs against the Cleveland Browns. We're taking the Tennessee Titans, who we've talked about a little bit on this show already, as 2.5-point underdogs to the Chargers, teasing them up to 8.5 points. Fellas, let me tell you, you don't need to send me a copy of the Wong book. This is a perfect Wong teaser. We're taking 2 teams, 2 underdogs at 2.5 points. We're pushing them up through the 3. We're pushing them up through the 7. We're pushing them up through the 8. Let's go cash some money. This is a situation where I have 2 outstanding head coaches in a situation where they're coming off of losses and they are underdogs at home. You can look up the trends. Both Mike Vrabel and Mike Tomlin are outstanding in this position. The case, especially for Pittsburgh, is so curious to me. They started off in the look-ahead line as a 2.5-point favorite at home against Cleveland, which makes tons of sense. That number has moved 5 points because of what happened in week 1. Don't overreact to week 1. Cleveland looked wonderful against Cincinnati. Pittsburgh got their butts handed to them against San Francisco. Mike Tomlin, this is the clincher for me with Pittsburgh, 16-0, undefeated in the regular season against the Cleveland Browns. So Tomlin as a dog on Monday night after getting pantsed. I love it. We made the case already for Tennessee. This is a perfect little dog showing big teaser. Let's go get some cash this week, boys.
Well, I love the fact, House, that you're going with my Wisen Up pick and you're incorporating it into this little dual-faceted dog show that you're putting on for the people here on FanDuel TV. So I will be rooting for you on that one, amigo. Now, for me, I think you're going to be rooting for my man's best bet. I'm going with the Commanders of Washington to go into Denver and win outright against the pathetic Denver Broncos. You know, everybody now is laying the points with Denver, saying, oh, it's Sean Payton. Oh, Washington on the road. Oh, there's no way Washington's going to go and start off the year 2-0. I just watched Denver play Vegas. That offense was thoroughly unimpressive. Period. End of discussion. I like the things that I saw from the Washington defense late. And it's a situation to me where everybody coming in on Denver, I feel on a money line perspective is going to get thrown into every parlay. I know some dopes for him are going to be teasing through zero, teasing zero, and trying to get points with the Denver Broncos. Well, guess what? That poodle right there is going to be a winner. The Washington Commanders get it done, and that is man's best bet, which was a loser for me in week 1. We need to make that a winner in week 2. All right, boys, we'll get to weekly
Hold on
specials.
one second,
Oh,
JJ.
you
JJ,
love
we
cutting
got like
off my
40
rundown
minutes.
today. That's the second time.
God.
Look at you.
I got to take exception. I mean, listen, Raheem can make fun of me teasing through the zero and whatever else, and there are ways to avoid that. He's right. Take the money line and the Giants, okay, and then parlay it with something else, and then you don't have to worry about the zero. But for him to say that the Bears are his dog of the week, plus 124, and what kind of size of the dog would that? I don't think there's a small enough dog that would register for
Chihuahua?
that kind of. What maybe like a dog. Maybe the dog on the Monopoly board. Is that even too big to describe what kind of dog Raheem is taking in this game? Come on, boys. Plus 180 or better. Let's do it.
Oh, man. I mean, look, nobody likes the Bears right now. So this is the perfect buy low spot. But I understand. Next time I'll come with a bigger dog.
All right, we need to think of, and I love that we're thinking on the fly here on FanDuel TV. So Sal, you would say the minimum of an underdog, what has it got to be? At least a 3.5 point dog for man's best bet?
Because we're picking pluses and winners, right? I mean, House is teasing the Steelers again. House has no memory. He had plus 2.5 last week and teased it through the 3 and the 7 and the 8, but it lost. But no, I would say plus 150 or better is a substantial enough dog.
House, can we get you to sign off on that?
That's fine. I just need to know the rules. I can work inside of it. I wondered if somebody was going to yell at me for copping out with a teaser on this week. I have no problem going back to the Steelers, by the way. The Steelers, you know, one of the things we have to remember as we size these things up, who owns who? And we're going to get to the San Francisco Rams situation, speaking of who owns who. But, man, the Tomlin record against Cleveland, and it doesn't matter who the head coach of Cleveland is, they just love putting it on the Browns. So, Let me go ahead and catch 8.5 points. You know, couple scores. That feels reasonable to me.
Well, I love the fact, guys, that we now have this on record, and we can give Raheem a little heat for maybe not going big enough when it comes to man's best bet.
I like the pick. I
do too. I think it's a winner. I absolutely think it's a winner. Now, FanDuel has on their website, you want to check this out as we get closer and closer to kickoff, these weekly specials that are out there. So the wise guys decided that we were going to take a look and we were going to find a weekly special that suits our fancy. So, Sal, I'll start with you since you needed to get that in there. So I give you a pass for cutting off weekly specials. It's allowed. It's understandable. But anyway, you got a good weekly special for me? Let's go.
I think I do. And you could bet on the FanDuel weekly specials, highest scoring game, lowest scoring game, highest scoring team, lowest scoring team. It really just like, and these numbers pop out at you. You get double digits for a lot of viable candidates here. I'm going Chargers Titans, highest scoring game plus 950. First of all, you could take the Chargers to be involved in the highest scoring game every week, and it's going to happen more than 1 out of every 9 or 10 times. Okay. Just because the way the coach operates, just because the fact that they're not interested in playing defense against the pass for sure. It's been years like that. 466 yards that Tua had. Now I know it's Tua. Okay. But that's 8.2 yards per play. That secondary has been suspect for years. I'm with JJ taking the points there for Tennessee, but I also think both quarterbacks shine in this game. Big Herbert game, big Tannehill game, plus 950 is going to be a good one. I think it's like a 34-30 type final and exciting ending.
I loved House's reaction to a big Ryan Tannehill game. I mean, that, by the way, is worth the price of admission.
Well, that could be 175 yards, a big Tannehill game.
It might be. I was going to say, if you crack 200, you're popping champagne. All right, House, weekly special for you. Take it away.
Well, again, I might be yelled at for a cop-out, but I do think that getting plus 650 odds on the Jets Cowboys as the lowest scoring game of the week is a very good potential return on investment. We made the case for the under in that game at 38.5. If I think about the game script of the offense that the Jets are going to run, I mean, you have to recall we got big Breece Hall runs and the Jets on the run game look good. Dalvin Cook look good. If you go inside the numbers, Breece Hall had negative yards before contact. So this guy had a stud game against the Bills. Like he was touched behind the line of scrimmage and still busted out. That ain't going to happen with these Dallas Cowboys. And I don't know, because you tell me, how many guys is Dallas going to put in the box against Zach Wilson? 10? They're going to put everybody inside the box and just, dare him to throw. What Zach Wilson likes to do is run backwards, cuz.
Right. McCarthy will probably put 13 in the boxes. I'm not sure he knows how many are designated for each side of the field. But, yeah, I get your point. And, by the way, it might not be a bad idea to go Wildcat with Breece Hall in some instances, to your point.
The only thing you got to watch there, though, is the pitch count that he's on. And that for his prop is something to beware of for everybody out there watching and listening. That number for Breece Hall looks too damn good to be true. You're like, wow, Breece Hall, he's got all this explosiveness. He's got a prop for rushing that just like it's salivating. It's like medium rare Peter Luger's steak, but there's something in the sauce that you just might want to stay away from. And that's why I like your play. All right, Raheem, weekly special. Take it.
We're going to go with Commanders, lowest scoring team, 10-1. That's actually up to 11-1, so you get a little bit more value. This is actually the lowest total on the board. Denver versus the Commanders, 38. It's the lowest total. So this is basically a process of elimination. So you can kind of eliminate the games with high totals. And when you look at this matchup, the Commanders, they scored 20 points while having 5 red zone trips last week. I can guarantee you they won't have 5 red zone trips this week in Denver in their road opener in altitude last week against the Arizona Cardinals. They only had 3.8 yards per play. Sam Howell was sacked 6 times and pressured on 32% of his dropbacks and only completed 50% of his passes. So I don't think the Commanders are going to score too many points here against this Broncos team. I like that. I also like laying the points with the Broncos with the -3.5. Sorry, JJ, but I just think this is a good spot for Sean Payton, and I think they're going to limit them offensively. So Commanders lowest scoring team, plus 11-1.
We've had a lot of unity on this particular show, so the idea that we have a little dissension amongst the ranks, Raheem, between you and me, I think it's good for business. So a little mano-a-mano action in week 2. I'm going with a weekly special, guys. That's a lot of fun to root for. At this point, I'm rolling the dice. I want a touchdown in every single 1 p.m. game. So if you get a touchdown in every single 1 p.m. game, you're laying -140, which, by the way, I normally would never do on a prop or a weekly special. But you know what? I want to see touchdowns. I want touchdowns in every single one of these games at 1 Eastern, at 10 West Coast time. I don't care what time zone you're in. In the early window of NFL games, we need a touchdown in every single one of those games. At -140, that's going to be a winner. And I want to throw this out there. To me, the weekly special to avoid, it's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined for 200-plus receiving yards. You want to talk about too good to be true. Bill Belichick is not Brandon Staley. They are not going to have both of those receivers going north of 100 yards and combining for 200-plus yards. So just throwing that out there, I'm staying away from that one. We go from the weekly specials to a little ringer grab bag where we go across the board. The guys have the option to kind of suit their fancy. They want to go prop. They want to go tease. They want to go trend. They can do whatever the hell they want to do. And House, because you're a man of mystery, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I have one, but I want to hear what Cousin Sal has to say. He had a reaction. I could see it in his face and his demeanor.
No. Go ahead. I'll catch back up. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay, very good. Well, great. My prop of the week, it's Geno Smith over rushing yards. And this has a couple different kind of aspects to it. It's the idea in the first place that the Seattle offense getting itself sort of reconstructed, resurrected. Aaron Donald took away the entirety of what they wanted to do. It was a one-man wrecking ball, one-man performance by Aaron Donald of the LA Rams last week in the second half. Geno Smith likes to run the ball. He ran the ball very well against this very Detroit team. The number is 14.5 rushing yards. I think you can get it on FanDuel at -113. I do think with Aiden Hutchinson coming from the side, there are going to be lanes inside. The Detroit defense interior is not as formidable as the Rams, and I think that will be part of how the Seattle Seahawks try to keep Detroit off balance. Let Geno get out and run a little bit, and maybe that will make him feel comfortable enough to get those wide receivers included on both halves of the game this week, JJ.
All right, House going with a prop, not going in the tease of the parlay direction. Interesting, but we'll see if you can make it 2 for 2. Raheem, a multitude of options. What suits your fancy?
I'm going to go with a 2-team 6-point teaser. We're going to tease the San Francisco 49ers down from 7.5 down to 1.5. The other leg of our teaser, we're going to go with Packers +3 up to +9. Looking at both of these games, we all know Kyle Shanahan. He owns Sean McVay 9-4 straight up and against the spread against Sean McVay. He just dominated this Rams team. And I think the Rams are kind of fraudulent coming off of that Seattle game. This was a team that everybody expected not to be good. So I think you can tease the 49ers and you're safe there. When you look at the Packers, I'm just not buying this Falcons team. Desmond Ridder, he threw for 115 yards last week with 34 of those yards coming on one completion to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. They didn't do much because this guy's not throwing the ball down the field. I mean, he's basically running the Army-Navy offense. So I can't trust the Falcons in a game where the total was just 40 to cover a double-digit spread. So you're basically needing the Falcons to win by 10 in order for you to lose this bet. I know Aaron Jones isn't playing. I know Christian Watson isn't playing. But I think Jordan Love is the best quarterback in this game. I think Matt LaFleur is the best coach in this game. And you guys know I'm high on the Packers. So tease the Packers up through 9. Those points are very valuable with a low total of 40.
So Raheem sticking with a team that was very good to him last week, and I can understand why. And we may have some thoughts coming up in a matter of moments on San Francisco and Los Angeles. All right, Sal. Prop, tease, parlay. I don't even know where you're going to go. So surprise me.
Well, I don't think we could say enough about how utterly atrocious the quarterback play was last week, especially in those 1:00 games. Like I felt like, oh my God, I'm watching preseason game number 4 because these guys didn't play in the preseason. And I think it was only 14 starting quarterbacks who hit 200 or more passing yards. Now, Josh Allen was a problem. He didn't play Sunday at 1. He played Monday at 8:30 p.m. And he was lucky enough to be in that game. I know they lost, but to bet him to throw an interception at -102, the interception is such a lucky or unlucky metric as it is anyway. And to throw in the fact that these quarterbacks are not in sync with their offensive lines, there's no reason to think that they've adjusted and there's going to be a complete turnaround from week 1 to week 2. By the way, I mentioned how lucky it is. You could throw a ball off your center's helmet by accident and it could get picked. And that's if you're not Josh Allen. Josh Allen, 20 interceptions and 17 fumbles in the last 19 games. That's 37 picks/fumbles in 19 games. He's averaging about 2 per game. Now, fumbles doesn't count for this bet, but -102, you don't think Max Crosby is going to pressure him to make him throw early enough on 3 or 4 occasions where one of them's going to go astray? I like the interception at -102 for Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm all about that action. And that Buffalo-Vegas game is very interesting to me. Buffalo is either going to win that game by 20-plus points, or I think it's a game they could legitimately lose outright. I can't see Buffalo, who is a front-running team. We saw that last year. We're seeing it again this year. That's a tight game. I wonder if you see Josh Allen maybe full late in the game and throw an interception. For me, bonus bet, I'm going with a guy, or actually, we're ahead of ourselves here. I'm giving you guys bonus bets. We didn't even get to my trend, my tease, because Raheem took it from me. It was San Francisco. I forgot it already. I know this. Sean McVay is owned by Kyle Shanahan. I know Sean McVay got to an NFC title game and beat Kyle Shanahan in an NFC title game, but if you're talking about ATS trends, Kyle Shanahan has owned McVay again and again and again. I would expect that to continue. The Niners have the best team, in my opinion, in the NFL. Los Angeles, coming off a win, might be feeling good about themselves. So my advice to everybody out there is get on board and tease and parlay San Francisco in anything you like and Thank me later. So, because I got ahead of ourselves, and there's a reason I got ahead of myself here, because for bonus bets, I'm giving you something in the Miami-New England game. And I thought I was going to have the heart to take the Dolphins until I found out that the entire planet is on the Miami Dolphins laying 2.5 tonight against Simmons' New England Patriots. So here's what I'm going to do. Jalen Waddle is going to score a touchdown. You're getting it at plus money. He's scored in 3 to 4 games against New England in his career. The only game he didn't score, he had Skylar freaking Thompson throwing him the football. So you can understand why he did not score. I think the Patriots try to do everything in their power to slow down Tyreek Hill. That means I'll be dancing and waddling and doing whatever the hell you want to do later on in the day. I got Jalen Waddle, bonus bet, anytime touchdown. Sal, quickly, bonus bet, take it away.
I'm going with you. I'm going with that game. And by the way, I love to pump up the Patriots as much as we can just to get Simmons on board, let him think that this team is going to be good, just so we don't have to talk about on Guess the Lines if Ish
No,
Smith
but not
is
this
get
week.
a
Normally,
max
I'd be on
contract.
board with that. Not this week, Sal. I can't have him giddy
No?
after this game. No, because he thinks the Patriots are winning the division. So we got to bring him back down to earth this week.
At least until 1 o'clock, we could do that, or 4 o'clock, whatever it is. But I'm going to go also with the Patriots pro Patriots prop. Mac Jones over 1.5 touchdown passes is plus 106. He had 3 last week against that Eagles defense. All right, I know they had to come back, but it could be the same situation this week. He's actually had over 1.5 in the last 4 games. He spreads it around. So I think he had 4 pass catchers with 5 or more receptions last week. You could say he's comfortable with this offense. So over 1.5 at a plus number. That's my pick, my bonus pick.
That is one I'll be rooting against, full disclosure, Sal, and I think you understand why. House, bonus bet.
Well, I made the case for Pittsburgh, and now this is me like channeling the Squares version of myself. I'm sitting at home. It's 8:15 on Monday night, and it's Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin come running out at Heinz Field, and then we see the Browns come out, and all I can see is another Pittsburgh beatdown. So I'm on the Steelers every which way. Going to play them getting the 2.5 points at minus 110. Going to play them on the money line plus 116. It just fits a narrative that I've been watching. I feel like nearly my whole life. I don't see Mike Tomlin and the Steelers coming out and going, 0-2 to start the season. I think the Browns showed us who they could be this season, and that is formidable. But I love Mike Tomlin against Deshaun Watson. I love it. So sign me up for all the Pittsburgh I can get. I can't wait till Monday night now, JJ.
All right, Raheem, you got 30 seconds. Bonus bet. Hit me.
Let's go with the Buffalo Bills. Minus 7.5. They're taking on this Raiders team who everybody on this panel said they were going to be the worst team in the league. You look at the Buffalo Bills. Like, this is a prime bounce back spot. This line should probably be 10. You look at the fact that the Raiders, they really struggle with pressure. You look at the fact that Jacoby Myers is out. This is a bounce back spot for the Buffalo Bills. I really love them this week.
Well, boys, that is going to conclude week 2 of Ringer Wise Guys. Well, guess what? We got bonus coverage coming your way on all the digital streams, on Twitter, on the Ringer, on FanDuel TV, and we will be back each and every week. We'll be ready for week 3, Sunday, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. I'll probably screw that up for Cousin Sal, for Joe House, Raheem Palmer, JJ John Jastremski signing off. We will see you East Coast Bias, winning week for Cousin Sal, but we're going digital. Boys are out. Be good, everybody. We're back. It's Ringer Wise Guys. It's the digital edition. It's the post show. Do we like that, Sal? The post show, the post game show, the wrap up. What are we going with here?
Yeah, well, maybe it's not a post game show unless we just want to pretend like we saw the games already and just conclude what we did. Boy, did Josh Allen turn things around or what against the Raiders?
How about that performance by Jordan Love? I like it. I like it.
Oh,
is there a game, Raheem, that we did not get to that you have compelling thoughts on that you'd like to share? Because right now, we went through the card. I actually think the boys did a fabulous job of almost hitting every game on the board, which is impressive. So I give us a whole lot of credit for that. But if there's one game that you had compelling thoughts on that you couldn't get to, what was it?
I think it's that Cleveland versus Pittsburgh game. I think that's a really interesting game because, like a lot of the sharp money is going to be on Pittsburgh. We know that Pittsburgh has absolutely dominated not only Cleveland, but in the role as an underdog. But the thing that concerns me for this game is that you look at the Steelers last year, they were first in adjusted games lost. They were a team who weren't really dealing with a lot of injuries, but they've suffered a swift reversal in week 1. They've already lost Cam Hayward. They've already lost Deontay Johnson. So Deontay Johnson is really going to impact their offense. And Cam Hayward, he's a guy who you really need him for the rushing attack that the Cleveland Browns had. And, when you look at last week, you look at last year, Steelers were 27th in early down EPA per play, 19th in early down success rates. So they really thrived on late downs, which is really unsustainable offense. And, they had those same struggles in week 1. And now you got to take on a Browns defense, which, they pretty much dominated Joe Burrow. So I'm not really running to go back Pittsburgh in this spot. I think this is a perfect underplay. This feels like the total was 38 and a half. It's been bet down from about 41, 42. This feels like one of those classic showdowns in the AFC North where it's like 13-10, 10-7. You're just not going to see a lot of points in this game because, the Browns, they also lost an offensive lineman in Jack Collins. And that's a huge loss. So I probably would go first half under, full game under, but I am leaning towards the Browns. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just think this Browns team, even though Deshaun Watson doesn't look good, it just feels like this is the Browns year.
I know Sal likes that. House does not, because House has the Steelers every which way this week. Sal, full disclosure, I'm feeling pretty darn good about that Brown winning AFC North bet after 1 week. I know it's early. I know a lot can transpire. A lot can happen. If they could just get like B-level quarterback play out of Watson, that team is loaded, dude.
Yeah, and they're favored this week, and so that's going to shrink to less than 2-1 if they win this week, right? But to your point about how we covered most of the games on the board, I think we did do a good job. I'm looking at the only ones I think we didn't hit were the Colts and Texans, which has to be, as someone who has that bet for each team to score a touchdown in the early window, is that the one you're most nervous about, JJ?
That's a great question. No, honestly, you know which one makes me the most nervous in
Chicago,
the 1 o'clock
Tampa?
window?
Who?
No, I'm going to tell you right now. Vegas scoring a touchdown against Buffalo. Because if that game gets super ugly, McDaniels kicks a couple of field goals, if there's one game that would make me the most nervous, I'm going to say Vegas, or I'm going to say Atlanta if Ritter goes and gives you another stinker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's your bet. I don't really care. But yeah, no, those are the ones I would worry about. And the other one we didn't talk about was a primetime game. Go figure, right? Bryce Young against Derek Carr. House, why did we avoid that? If the league thought before the season that this was going to be so attractive to put it on as a standalone game, by the way, it will straddle the later.
I was going to say Monday, they buried it. It's not even a standalone game. It's it's the B-level primetime game.
Right.
But
and yet
it
didn't interest any of us to talk about it. It is strange.
Well, I mean, there is like situational reasons to play on Carolina, I think, but I'm not getting in the Bryce Young business. It's too early in his career yet. And to JJ's point, the league buried it. We didn't bury it. They put it in a dead spot, 7:15 on Monday night. Who is that for? And why are there 2 Monday night football games? I'm not a very smart person, but Carolina and the Saints, that's like a 1 o'clock game. Who cares? In any event, I don't mind not having any action on it. I contemplated a couple different plays with that Houston-Indianapolis game because I thought the Colts actually were super live that whole game against Jacksonville. They really showed up. They had all of this red zone activity that they couldn't convert. They had the ball at 1st and goal at the 5-yard line. They had the ball at 2nd and goal at the 2-yard line and couldn't do anything. I really wanted to play an Anthony Richardson anytime touchdown at plus 190 this week, but his knee got banged up, so I got scared off a bit. I thought about teasing one side or the other and pushing one of those two teams up to through the 1 or the 1.5 up to 7 or 7.5. but it's just too much of a toss up. The Texans have all these issues on the offensive line. They're down to third stringers and fourth stringers, so it's a stay away. I will say that I think CJ Stroud may ultimately be the best of the rookie quarterbacks as the season kind of plays out here.
Okay,
I agree.
Okay,
but Anthony Richardson looked great, and they did what they were supposed to do. Steichen is awesome, by the way. Like, I'm filing the Colts away for some opportunities as the season develops, because Shane Steichen, their head coach, is legit, and the designed runs that they had for Richardson were really good, really smart. So I have the Colts. I'm putting them in a pocket, but I couldn't come up with any action on that game, JJ.
You know, I bet that Colt game, and Sal, I just know I'm going to be cursing myself. It's going to be like 3 minutes to go. It's going to be like a 3-point game, and I'm going to be sitting there saying, why in the world did I bet Indianapolis and Houston? That will happen.
I think that game is really interesting just because, I mean, if you look at the screen right now, Houston was a 1.5-point favorite. They're down at a pick'em at many sports books, including FanDuel. So I think the issues on the offensive line are like real serious. Laramie Tunzel, their left tackle, is out. And then also one thing that we neglected to mention is that CJ Stroud, he actually popped up on the injury report with a right shoulder injury on Friday. So I think the Houston Texans, they were probably a team that probably going to take a lot of sharp money this week because their defense is really, really good. But the issues on offense, it's really problematic. So with that low total, I see no reason if you can get a +7 with not the Falcons, with the Colts, I think you're in a good position.
Yeah, again, the league must have been excited to have the two rookie quarterbacks, or two of the big rookie quarterbacks, squaring off in week 2. And like, oh boy, already they're both banged up. Who knows if they're going to make it to the end. But Raheem, I did want to ask you earlier. It's an interesting thing with the Denver line and just any games that are in Denver with the altitude. What do you think they work into that line, right? Like, because you talked about the under in that game, right? But I'm also thinking, teams will try a 57-yard field goal when they wouldn't normally try that. But how does that weigh against the idea that the visiting team can't breathe? So I wonder how many points are dedicated to the over-under in terms of, hey, we're going to see longer field goals, but also the visiting team may not be able to adjust. Do you have an idea of how that's measured?
I think when it comes to the points, I mean, right now, kickers are just out of this world. I don't know if you caught, I think it was some college football game yesterday. You had a college kicker hit a 61-yard field goal. So everybody's just making like long field goals everywhere. So I don't think it's necessarily impacting the point output. I think it does impact these spreads, but I think you look over the last 5 years or so, Denver has really, they've sucked. So it's not like you're getting that much of advantage by playing Denver on the road, because more often than not, they've been losing these games. But I think they finally have a competent coach for the first time in a while. So I am kind of pricing it in, but it probably wouldn't be any more than a half point or so.
Mm-hmm.
So last week we did this little wrap up, and I was dumb enough to suggest the idea that I wanted to play the Dolphin Charger under. Thankfully, I didn't. I discussed it, and the under was cooked about a quarter and a half into the game, and it was back and forth, and it was insanity. The over-under in the Patriot-Dolphin game has moved a couple of points here. Raheem, it's gone from 44 to 46.5. Do you think an under is actually a worthwhile investment? Can I dare think about taking an under with a Miami Dolphin game? Because I'm about to.
This is hard. And I mean, the one thing I will say is we all saw the Chargers run the ball at will against this Dolphins team. So you can kind of expect the Patriots to do the same thing. But I think this is a game where both offenses should get off. So I would lean towards more of the over. I think I have this like 47-48. I'm staying away from it now, but I'm not crazy about the under.
Sal, what are you doing with this primetime game? You playing it anyway?
I'm sorry. I know you're going to hate me for this, but I think it's a good spot for the Patriots. I don't think Belichick gets in. He doesn't get embarrassed. You're not going to see Tyreek Hill go for 2 touchdowns, right? He covers everyone's good receiver well, except in that playoff game against the Bills when they scored 135 points, that Saturday night game a couple years ago. But, we talk about kitchen sink games. Patriots are in trouble if they lose their first 2 home games and don't look good doing so, and especially if one is in the division. So I don't know why, but I feel like it means more to Belichick, and I don't think we got, as Raheem pointed out, a good indication of how solid the Dolphins were on either side of the ball because they played that Chargers team, which is such an anomaly.
Yeah, I like the over because of what I imagine in terms of pace of these two teams. I mean, the Patriots, especially against the Eagles, were kind of a revelation. I mean, it was an unknown quantity coming in with Bill O'Brien, an actual, genuine offensive coordinator calling plays for the New England Patriots. Novel concept, but I really liked the tempo that the Patriots played at, and they did what you would hope in a situation where you go down immediately with, bonehead turnovers that translate right into points. They were right there. They had several possessions where they could have gone down the field and scored. The Eagles held on, and all of your Eagles fans in your life say that was an ugly loss. And then the Eagles just did that again with another ugly loss against Minnesota. Keep that in mind for the Eagles as this season goes on. But I like the angle of the over because I think, McDaniel for sure is not scripting up a game plan for the Dolphins where they're going to try and take the air out of the ball. The only sizable advantage they have is that passing attack, and they need it to get going. So I like, I'm not surprised to hear that the number is going that direction, and I kind of still like the over.
All right, boys. Parting thought from each of you before we say goodbye. Raheem, I start with you. Parting thought for week 2.
I'm going to say that one of these divisional dogs, whether it's New England, whether it's the Steelers, one of those teams are going to lose, and one of them going to be 0-2. And I think you're seeing sharp money on both the Steelers, and you're seeing sharp money on both New England. I think one of those teams, at least one of those teams, loses, and you're looking at either Miami or Cleveland as probably one of the contenders in the AFC. So I think one of those teams really makes their mark in this game.
Sal, parting thought?
Parting thought, and we hit it earlier, the way they set up these games, the late afternoon, you're going to want to take the 49ers over the Rams. You're going to want to take the Cowboys over the Jets just to win. And you're going to want to take the Giants to bounce back and just beat the Cardinals. And that pays out nicely. You get to plus money, plus 138, but one of those teams is going to screw you. I can't tell you. I'd lose my job if I told you who it was going to be. I know who it's going to be, but I'm not allowed to say. But anyway, just be careful out there in the late afternoon.
House?
Well, that's really the sentiment of week 2. Just be careful out there across the board. I just want to say with Clinton Portis, Coach Hanky Janky over my left shoulder there. Especially be careful of the C words this week. I know we've got a couple of different things. I'm going to just be very Homer about it. I don't like the situation for them. I don't like the pass rush that the Cardinals got last week. Denver's pass rush against the Raiders in week 1 was non-existent. I don't think that we're going to see a repeat of that. So if you're going to play the C words, just be careful out there. That's all I could say.
My final parting thought, Tua undefeated against Bill Belichick. Just throwing that out there. I know it's a small sample size, but I'm doing it anyway.
What is it,
Miami.
2, 3? What is the sample size?
See,
I think it's 4-0.
4-0.
4?
And it will be 5-0 after tonight.
Wow.
How about that? And that way, Simmons will be miserable when he's talking with you doing the podcast. That's what I'm.
You got to come on, guess the lines if the Dolphins win. If and when the Dolphins win.
I want to be celebrating with the Casamigos in hand. You guys don't need me.
You could do that.
But I want to. You just give him shit for me. That's all I ask.
Okay, I will.
All right. On that note, Cousin Sal, Raheem, House, JJ signing off. We'll be back next week, 11 a.m. on FanDuel TV. We'll have our wrap-up show, of course, on all the social media feeds. Good job by Jack and all the crew. Boys are out. Be good, everybody.